Year of the Mecha brings us back to Macross. In a different form this time. Sort of. Millennium's here.
Hello.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and the funny thing I realized, especially about this, considering all the various schedule changes and like kind of having to change around like which co-commentators are booked for each week. Like I remember how at the start we were thinking, because of your interest in Macross, that it was like, yeah, we'll get Millennium on for like all the Macross games this year. There's only a few of them, and then it just didn't turn out that way until now.
Yeah.
You never quite know what's
happen.
going to happen through all the 12 months of a single year.
Hey, if I didn't have, a job, a family, I could dedicate everything to just the streams I want to be on, but...
Yeah, alas, those all, they those are important. They still need to take priority when they show. Absolutely. So, Macross 30. Obviously, this is not the title screen. I figured it would be best to just go straight into the playthrough right now, like on a New Game Plus, because this is made by ArtDink, who we've already established made a name for themselves of like being really good at making mecha games for the PSP based on existing licenses like Gundam and Macross. The latter in particular being like, I think, some of the absolute best at conveying that series in video game form. But they were always very, bite-sized missions. There wasn't really anything unique in terms of like the game structure that surrounded them. In fact, that's usually the case with a lot of mecha games out there. Most of the stuff I've shown on this channel have all been like abiding by like a mission or vague episode format, which, I mean, the latter makes sense, because we've all watched mecha anime. We know how stories are paced out on a per episode basis. But things, as you'll see here, are a bit different. As Bandai and ArtDink had basically promoted this game back when it was coming out, in time for Macross's, at the time, 30th anniversary, hence the subtitle, this is what they have referred to as a flight action RPG. It is, you're going to see a lot more of like a hard JRPG influence in some regards.
I'm very curious to see.
Yeah. But I say some mainly because, well, budget, I guess, is the main thing that always rears its ugly head sometimes with these licensed products. But it's like, this is, at least, to its credit, this is an original plot. We even got us like an original, opening theme for this. New characters and everything.
Original characters, yeah.
Yeah, and this opening's pretty good. And the idea is that it's basically being sung by this game's new songstress, only really appearing in this game. And I guess I noticed like a specific. Oh, Super Robot Wars BX, I think it is. One of the 3DS games where they actually included Macross 30. So, like, characters and events from there are in there. But we also still get plenty of representation from, like, the older series, because this is one of those wacky original plots where space-time shenanigans are afoot.
Oh, Macross Plus and Macross Zero represented as well.
Yep. Yeah, pretty much all the major ones that were obviously overseen by Kawamori, so we're not going to get, like, the kind of bizarre bonus that Macross Triangle Frontier gave us by, like, including missions from Macross 2. Super Macross Wars. Yeah, that... I'm surprised that honestly has not happened. Really? Okay, wait, okay, that was weird. I don't know why it just went back to, like, the main menu like that, unless it was a... Fuck, I'm forgetting. What the hell? Well, let me try this again. But yeah, it was like Super Macross Wars. It's funny that there wasn't like the idea. Oh, I think I realized what I actually did wrong. I accidentally pressed X when I was on this screen and not circle. Whoops. Because it's supposed to go to this screen after you select your difficulty. and you like your particular control type, which I believe was I don't remember if this was the yeah, because type A is supposed to be more like the basically how it controlled on the PSP, but I went with type C in this case because, you know, Artink, they made these games like these Macross games for the PSP, did a tremendous job making them work within the confines of that system's control scheme, you know, having literally only as many buttons as a Dreamcast. But now they're on the PS3. They got 2 extra shoulder buttons and an analog stick. How do you think they updated that? Well, they've included a number of extra control schemes that take advantage of, you know, things to encourage like more manual aiming, different button combinations for certain maneuvers. But it has a bit of a downside to it that I should kind of like head off at the pass on this one, because the PSP games were very fast, simple, and to the point. They also were not RPGs. Even though, you know, you could upgrade your units, you know, stats and whatnot, it was ultimately still like very much like a mission-based game where like skills kind of what's important at the end of the day. In this, the RPG aspect of the game structure and balancing kind of makes it that this is going to be a significantly slower game with not as many interesting things that can be done with your units compared to what was possible on PSP. Anyway, we have our main character here, Leon Sakaki, another member of the SMS, you know, as established by Frontier, like the main mercenary force of that time. They aren't just present on the Frontier fleet. They have all sorts of branches across the galaxy. And if you think like these production values for this cutscene are like boding pretty well for what you think the rest of the game will be, again, budget.
All the budget went to this cutscene, you're saying?
All the budget basically went to like the major moments at the beginning and end, essentially. A lot of the other like quote-unquote cutscenes that involve like, you know, that look like an anime, more often than not are just still frames with voiceovers on top.
Oh well.
Yeah. That's just how it is. But right here, you know, flying around, fighter mode, kind of the same as always. Lock-on works a bit different because instead of it being a toggle, you gotta hold L1. Keeps track just kind of like always. Still got your anti-missile defenses, but the button input is different for that because that green glow, that fold energy, is relating to like our dedicated shield systems, and that's how you combine it with like other inputs to perform specific functions, like a high-powered boost, the missile defenses, as you saw. There's also like an enhancement to like melee. A lot of familiar things.
I like how they've made the environment look a lot like a painted anime background.
Yeah, skyboxes and environment arts for this game in general, I would say, are like a significant strong suit, especially once we're after this prologue battle and get down to the planet's surface, the planet of Ouroboros, where we're kind of like caught in like a little excursion above the atmosphere as we were en route to basically do a delivery of our the AI unit for our Valkyrie we're piloting, the YF-25 Prophecy, which is basically like it's a prototype version essentially of the Messiah.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's funny just watching these cutscenes again, because every time I've gone back to play this, since it's all in Japanese and I can't understand it anyway, I would typically, like, all subsequent playthroughs, I just skip all these cutscenes. Watching them again, though, it's like, yeah, the moments where they put in the time to make them look in anime good is appreciated. The YF-29B Percival, like another prototype unit that's like a deviation of the YF-29 Durandal. And typically, if this were, you know, like on a brand new game, we would just get shot down immediately because, like, I mean, for fuck's sake, like, I got so many units unlocked and upgraded and everything that, like, I can kind of hold my own. Like, those jobber enemies at the start went down really fast, as you probably saw, like, one hit. And of course, it's not Macross without a ton of missiles.
Heck yeah. Those missiles were mishot.
Yeah. But yeah, you got like the typical lock-on missiles, you got rapid missiles that fire one after the other, and then of course you got like a laser machine gun or some other like third secondary weapon that is sometimes like unit dependent, as it were. But also, we can even swap out the function of our main weapon, our little gun pod. Instead of a machine gun, yeah, we got like a little beam sniper.
Nice. I like the design of the menus.
Yeah, it's very slick. That said, though, it is kind of unfortunate, I guess we'll say, is that with those primary weapon types, like 3 sub-weapons and like 2 main weapons, that's basically all you're going to see as far as weapon variety. I mean, there's some things that are kind of different depending on the unit. Like some units will have like a special like fold shield that they can activate, like pinpoint barrier, that takes the place of like the 3rd sub-weapon. But most of the time, it is typically some form of laser machine gun. Oh, and there's the same opening video that we already saw. Just skip that. Good old VF-19S Excalibur. Pretty much all like the major iterations of like Valkyries throughout the whole series you're going to see through this game, and that kind of ties into what I think is very novel and interesting about the RPG approach that they took with this game. Oh yeah, also just that gives us more backstory that might not be easy to parse if you don't really know Japanese. The other 2 characters with Leon, the white-haired dude is named Rod. I forget his last name, but the girl is Leon's sister, Mia, and this is kind of like a flashback to a time when, like, she lost her life during some incident. Rod and Mia were like engaged with each other, and because of her death, that caused Leon and Rod's whole friendship to split apart. You know, typical anime drama shit.
She's got the now traditional mascot smartphone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And this is Aisha, who's a Zentradi, and I'm gonna say takes after Noah from Patlabor in that she has the right mindset in terms of enthusiasm for all things robots. Yeah, she is like, she's going to be, as you'll see, like our one of our main supporting characters, who's also a pilot, but primarily a mechanic, and a damn good one. And yeah, as you can see right now, after all those cutscenes from the prologue, this is where a lot of the all the dialogue and story is going to be conveyed. You know, talking head, portraits, text boxes. Which honestly, I think I'm just going to like keep skipping because I can summarize. And we need to get to a bit more of the gameplay soon, especially for showing off the whole assortment of Valkyries that this game has on offer and how that ties into progression. But otherwise, it's like we were trying to deliver the AI control box for our YF-25. We got shot down, crash landed on the planet, and as it currently stands, we're not really able to leave like the planet and like kind of like fold out to our actual destination because there is a current phenomenon happening up on this planet called the Ouroboros Aurora, where R1 unlock. Yeah, that's pretty much like the only way you can really skip it in these dialogue sequences. But but the idea is that like this whole aurora phenomenon is causing a shit ton of fold faults, and fold energy, for anyone that has obviously watched Macross, knows that of how significant that energy source is, and how it's used in the universe, especially for like long range like space travel, just warping to your destination. And as you'll find, that also ties into what I was talking about with like the space-time shenanigans of we're just gonna as the game goes on, you'll be encountering characters from all across Macross history, all the way back to Macross 0.
Excellent. Well, everyone knows that faster than light travel basically means time shenanigans.
Yeah. I mean, at least be grateful that there's nothing on the level of like Event Horizon in this, where like anyone from Macross would just suddenly stumble upon hell. Yeah. So that's where we would go to like kind of assemble like who we're gonna bring with us out in the field, like what our aircraft is. Do you also have to collect your full pack parts like in Pikmin? No, this is not like that. But here is our development menu, and you can see.
Ooh.
Yep. So how this game works, because you might have noticed, the VFOD 0D was what we were automatically equipped with, because the idea in the story is that the YF-25 prophecy gets totaled during the crash landing. Aisha finds us, and like she's also part of SMS. So, you know, we're technically work colleagues in this case. It's not too strange. Like, this isn't a, you know, uninhabited planet. It's already been colonized. So there's already civilization and, like, branches of other established foundations in the world, like, in the universe, like SMS. Nuns, you know, new UN Spacey is also present here. But how this works is that starting from the VF0 kind of series, I mean, there's also the SV-51s, which were piloted by like the two Russian assholes that were the antagonists of that OVA series. But as the game goes on, you start building up, going through the history of the development of the Valkyries to the VF1, the VF11s, YF-19 and 21, and their mass production counterparts. And yes, you could even play as the VF-19 Kai, like the fucking red firebomber version for Neki Basara.
Excellent. This reminds me of R-Type Final, where you've got the whole history of all of the R-Type ships.
Yeah.
That you unlock like this.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Oh yeah, and there's also, you know, if you can, they're like an offshoot, but you can also develop Zentradi units, but they're very limited in comparison. You know, Regalts, Quadrons, the powered Zentradi suits. And then, you know, back to the VF line, you got like the VF-171, which is like kind of like, you know, the default standard unit that the new UN Spacey uses in all their forces. You know, you even got the VB6, the Koenig monster. Love
that one.
That beautiful beast of a machine. YF-25, VF-25, so like the entirety of the of like the SMS Skull Squadron from the Frontier Fleet, VF-27, and like all of its other variants, and then the YF-29, and then this unique thing, which was completely new at the time this game came out, the YF-30. Yeah. And so obviously you could switch, you know, along this entire list, and if it's applicable, you can even equip their available super packs, which will produce various stat differences. You can switch out pilots as well. There's a lot of pilots that only really unlock both pilots and support, which you know, like you have those assigned so that you can activate your special support skill. Most of the time, it can typically, because most of the support characters are the various musicians in the Macross series, so their support skill is playing their music to give you a boost. So, no, you can't specifically play as a bard, but you can at least have one kind of giving you morale support. But, yeah, there's just, like, a lot of pilots, different variations of, like, the same characters and whatnot, and, of course, all the way extending to, like, existing characters. as you would expect, anytime you switch over to Neki Basara, he always has to pilot his version of the VF-19. He refuses to use anything else because he will only defeat his enemies if he can with the power of song. Mealing, though, she doesn't mind. She'll use anything.
So the pilots have levels and stats as well as the aircraft?
Correct. The thing with the pilots is that their levels do increase in the traditional way. Like, they always start out at level 1 or whatever the low equivalent is based on when you get them in the story. And they have a level cap of 50. However, level, when it comes to the aircraft, is always set in stone, because the point of progression is that you're expected to be upgrading to the next model of Valkyrie as the story progresses, until you eventually reach this one, the YF-30 Cronus, like the flagship new Valkyrie design for this game, which all
the stats maxed out.
Yeah, because I spent plenty of time on it, and even then, stuff like the YF-29s. Can you pilot a Valkyrie with a big again, because of the fucking okay, yeah, I'll allow that message. This is the unfortunate thing when it comes to I will say, yeah, it's with the auto mod. It's just Twitch auto mod. I really need to just type in an exception to that whenever you're referring to the character Clan, it is not referring to the fucking clan. Just don't make that misconception, Twitch, please. It's not that. But yeah, we're just going to we're just gonna stick with VF0 to start, and I'll be switching out, basically increasing in Valkyrie level as the demonstration for this game goes on. So why not take a VF0 with Roy Fokker's colors? Oh, they just don't like her small form. Oh, right, yeah, of course, that's the reason. But no, unfortunately, I believe it's or maybe I'd have to double check. As far as the amount of units and characters available in this, it is really weird with how they had to pick and choose what they would make playable, because this is a PS3 game. The requirements for developing a game in HD is exponentially bigger than developing for a PSP. And that shift in development environment also contributes to some of the other issues that kind of crop up with this game, not just in terms of the fact that they had a limited budget to work with, but there's also, is this Zen? It's not hell like Zen in Half-Life, so I'm gonna say no. It is really pretty though, aesthetically.
They've got some nice water reflections.
Yeah, but yeah, and that was just going to be a very long-winded tutorial that explains more about about how each form controls for a Valkyrie, because kind of the first 3 parts of this chapter are all focused around this first mission. It's all about kind of just playing in Batroid form, and then the next mission would be about piloting Gerwalk, and then eventually going back up to fighter, and then you can play with all 3 modes at once. But this game, despite having a pretty strong visual aesthetic to it on PS3, in technical performance, it's a bit rough, because whatever techniques they use to make their games work the way they did on back on the PSP, it doesn't really translate as well to this, because there's a lot of long loading times. The frame rate gets especially erratic, particularly during intense fight scenes where there's a lot of there's a lot of enemies flying around, missiles popping off everywhere. So it's the sort of thing where more playable Macross by these guys are good, but it's also the sort of thing where you do kind of would wish that the That just the performance was a lot more solid than it is. Yeah, Batroid's pretty much the same as you expect. Very heavy though, compared to even on the PSP games. Like, this is about as high as I can reasonably get with the with like the jump jets, and even as I'm falling, the thrust typically isn't enough to guarantee that I can like get back up to that original height in a reasonable amount of time. But here's something that, even though it's not an enemy, I can actually demonstrate this, that I think is the one cool thing about the changes they made to Macross 30's gameplay compared to the PSP games. I mentioned with the lock-on that that you have to hold L1, but otherwise, with these shooter controls, you could technically play it just like a traditional third-person shooter where it's all manual aim. But with the when you lock onto a target, the right stick can still be used to adjust your aim, but only within the radius of, like, whatever target you are locked onto. Which means, with moving targets, you now get a bit of extra granular control of how to still line your shots up by basically controlling where you are firing based on what the direction that you think they're moving. It's like a very manual fire prediction system. It's really cool, and, like, I'm always going to be, like, an advocate for, you know, like, if your game's going to have shooting as, like, a core component of it, not every shooting game needs to abide by, like, the third-person or first-person shooter control standards we've all, like, seem to have agreed to. Like, there is valid reason to use lock-on systems and still achieve a gameplay system that is capable of its own depth. Because, like, if you take the need to constantly manually aim out of the equation, the expectation then is that you should be putting more of those resources into making movement an extremely engaging factor. You know, that's the core of how Virtual On works. You don't need to manually aim. You just need to make sure that your dash directions will ensure you avoid enemy projectiles and that yours will hit the other. But this is kind of like a nice middle ground, I would say, being able to still engage in that lock-on, dash-based combat, but you can also decide whether to aim at, like, their current position or, like, in the direction that they are heading, and have it be something that's not handled in an automated way that could be potentially inaccurate.
I only just noticed the SDF1 in the background.
Yeah, which I will highlight. Like, I used to think, because I mentioned with the Ouroboros Aurora phenomenon that is the center of this game with, like, weird space-time shenanigans, that is not the actual, like, for real original SDF1 Macross. That is just one of, like, the series of, like, Macross units that was made in the original SDF1 style that basically were part of the original set of, you know, like, big colony flotilla ships that went out to find other worlds to inhabit. You know, as part of that whole initiative after the events of the Zentradi War. So yeah, the original SDF1 Macross did not get warped out of Macross City and to here. It's just a copy that was part of a series of the Macross units that were designed to tug around those gigantic, like, clam-looking ships, you know? They always look like clams.
I thought the clams were powered by themselves.
No. Well, I think it's like they have a lot of systems that make it, like, self-sustaining as, like, you know, like a colony environment, but they themselves don't have, like, the necessary, like thrust or pull to really, like, get them to move anywhere. So that's why they're always, like, pulled around by a Macross class ship and, you know, have a whole fleet to escort them because, you know, space is a dangerous place. The Zentradi were already bad enough. God knows what else is there. Couldn't be, I don't know, space bugs or literal devils that from another dimension that feed on spirit energy. Yeah, so the VF0, I'm just gonna, even though we still haven't fully been given access again to all 3 modes at once, I'm still gonna just switch over to the to like the VF1 series, since 0 and 1 are still pretty short. Yeah. Or short-lived supremacists. That's true. Yeah. Yeah. Fucking. Yeah. Yeah, the Millennium, I know you mentioned before the stream started that you started watching Delta again, giving it another chance. Yeah, like I wasn't
time
sure.
around, it's sticking this time. I'm enjoying it. Yeah.
Yeah, with that one, I could definitely say I hope you'll be into Valkyrie on Valkyrie combat, because that's more or less what the like of all the type of antagonist forces that are faced in the Macross series, I do find like the Kingdom of Windermere in Delta to be the most interesting, because it's pretty much like the closest it gets to being like a kind of almost the most like a Federation versus Xeon type of scenario, you know? Because even with the Zentradi, they are like products of protoculture, but that like they're so fundamentally different in the sense that like they have no culture of their own. They're just giants who know how to fight. But Windermere is, you know, that is a race of protoculture creations that have their own culture, just like humans. So
From what I can see so far, it's almost exclusively a race of pretty boys, except for one character.
Well, there are girls as well, but obviously, yeah, we can't forget Freya Weon. So she's an adorable gremlin and deserves all the protection and love in the universe. They have apples. That is true. They got a lot of apples. So Gerwalk mode, as you can see, you know, if you want to be able to sustain like hover capabilities, this is the mode that you want to switch to. And in fact, I'd say that of a lot of the modes that you end up engaging with most during combat, Gerwalk, I think, is the one that takes up most of your time, because it's basically the same third-person shooter model, but you can adjust your vertical height with ease. It also does tie in, admittedly, to one of the more unfortunate changes with this, where in the PSP games, when you were playing in Gerwalk mode, it always moved forward, and it also, even more than it does in here, had like this really cool effect where if you were up against a slanted slope, it would, like, it would actually, like, adjust its kind of standing position so that it would be like it's standing on the side of, like, a incline or wall.
Yeah.
Like, the effect of it in the PSP games, again, was, like, way more extreme, which kind of is fitting because of how much faster those games are. But yeah, as you'll see, like, this is ultimately, something where like, this is kind of what combat ultimately looks like. You can see, obviously, like I said, with the whole, adjusting your aim to fire in their expected position, like, that is a cool feature that I think makes it, you know, if it didn't have this genuinely would have been a game where I don't think I would have spent as much time with it, because I would be going like, why don't I just play the PSP games instead?
It does look kind of wrong how slow you're going with the way the jets are firing.
Yeah, it's very odd, especially because of how like with these particular environments, like you think about how they're done in the missions for the PSP Macross games, they are very sparse. In all frankness. But that's kind of to their benefit, because with as little obstructions that they have, that meant that you could just fly around at like breakneck speeds and just do all kinds of aerial maneuvers that are largely unrealistic, but still fun, and you can do them to your heart's content. Here, like, the ceiling of this whole overworld is very apparent, and when you get to playing in Valkyrie mode, it's like fighter mode, like you can't pull off any of the really fancy maneuvers where you purposefully stall your vehicle. There is at least, like, the game does still include the option to to switch to between either an easy flight mode or a realistic flight mode, where the idea is that you have to use separate buttons in order to rotate to basically turn left or right, because the stick, if you press it left or right, will instead bank it in those directions. And it's like, I appreciate the inclusion, but even in the PSP games, I found it like too hard to come to grips to, particularly with how fast those games operated at. And it's like, the PS2 Macross game by Sega AM2, I still feel is like a better justification for that control model, because it's building itself on top of an already like established flight combat engine. You know, these are like these are games that are derived from like the engine that Art Inc. put together when they started making Gundam games. Like that's where the roots of these particular games lie. So let's keep switching up. We'll keep getting like more and more powerful Valkyries to play with. That was the one line. Oh yeah. Oh, and also I forgot to mention, like there was there's some DLC for this game. Not a whole lot, thankfully. So it's like, if you somehow want to get a copy of this game and you have a Japanese PSN account, assuming it's still on there, you could just, I think, buy these 3 pieces, which are they're just existing models, but they got the I forget the Japanese word for it, but like I think you kind of understand what it's going for, where it's just like
the Ita Valkyries.
Yes, Itasha, that's what it is. Thank you, both of you. The just plastered with like insanely distracting line artwork and colors and all that stuff. You know, it's like someone used it as a fucking canvas. It's real silly, but
I think that's what the series was always missing. It's like the pilots clearly would be fans of the singers, of the idols, and would want them plastered all over their fighter jets.
Yeah, well, what was it? Wasn't it like in Frontier? I do seem to remember it was like the Koenig monster, like wasn't there like kind of like one of those like done in the style like those old like wartime like pinup decals, but like instead of it being just like a generic blonde girl like riding on top of like a missile, it was Ronka or something like that. I seem to recall that. Yeah, but yeah, and now that I remember, again, going back to the weirdness of like the units and pilots available in this game and kind of how they let you be flexible with it, is that yes, with the Zentradi units, you can play. You can basically assign all of these available pilots to it. So the implication, I guess, is that they get macronized. But then it's like, you know, this is obviously Klon, you know, when she is not micronized, but she could still fit inside of a VF-11B.
Well, maybe she's just hanging out underneath or something.
And she's just surfing on top of it. And she's just like those fucking like those moments in like a Universal Century Gundam where you have like a flight transformation unit, and then you just have like another Gundam that's piggybacking on top of it. That's what I imagine. But no, just to show that these exist, we'll switch to the Quidron row with although this is Milia's colors. So we actually could technically play as Milia if we wanted, but nah, we'll give Klon her time. Oh yeah, also important to note, there is an inventory in this game. You do collect items, and it's kind of annoying because of like the painfully low inventory limits that you have to work with. You can only hold 30 of any item type. You know, like the individual cap for those particular items will always differ. And the thing is that like what's in your inventory can include important things like healing items, ammunition for your sub-weapons, accessories that are designed to give you like status buffs and things like that. So that's something to keep in mind. And like when you play this game a lot, you will you'll end up having to go back to like this to the inventory screen a lot just to get this shit sorted, especially when key items for side quests also take up space in this inventory. I do not get why they had to make it this way. Like, plenty of other games save you the hassle by just putting key items in like their own separate screen that is always kept track of. Because it's the sort of thing where I've had this happen before, because I would lose track of things every time when I needed to, when I would need to, clear out my inventory of junk. Is that I would accidentally put key items into my inventory and be like, and like there are like some side quests that you take where you have to, find an item in the environment and turn it into the quest giver. But, and like the item you need to find is usually like it's marked on your map. So I was like, what the hell? Why is it not marked on the map? And then I realized my mistake. Menu itemization, yes, another problem that you can kind of levy against this game. So as you'd expect, there's only really practically two types of modes for like these sort of Zentradi units. You have like your fighter mode, which, lets you fly around, all kinds of stuff like this. But then you have, the Batroid mode where, just the flight capabilities are off. And since this is not a plane, we can't really do any loop-de-loops with it. So it is admittedly a very limited maneuverability. But I don't generally play as these units as often, so might as well, just for the sake of showing that they exist. I still think about how, like, even with like the demonstration I did for Macross Triangle Frontier, that I wish I could have still shown off more units than I did, because there was so much wild shit in that game.
I liked when you were playing as the SDF one, guarding the SDF one while it was unfolding.
Yeah, that was the funny thing. I still have a soft spot for how I ended the stream where I just played as Britai with a fucking steel pipe and going to town on all these fucking flying ships and whatnot. So like here at these various hangars, these are the hangars that connect to various underground cities. We do not go inside these cities. They're underground for a reason, so that there isn't more stuff that is like obstructing the scenery. In fact, that's actually the in-universe reason why, because everyone that has come to Ouroboros agrees that the scenery is so bizarre and beautiful that we do not want to fuck this shit up with like industry and like developing cities and whatnot. So we're just gonna build shit underground,
so that no one can see scenery.
Yeah, enjoy the surface for what it is. But otherwise, here, this is where you go if you want to buy and sell items and get Hunter Guild quests, which are like pretty much your side quests. And starting out, you absolutely do want to engage in these because they pay money and resources, and as well as give you like extra experience and like kind of and tune points for your given vehicle. The shop as well is also where you can buy blueprints for the various Valkyries. Most of which, by the time you get to New Game Plus, it will be these level 3 blueprints, which is how you are able to, like, once you have these, that's how you're able to get all the stats maxed out with like a total of fucking like 999,999 points. So like they had to get as many 9s as they could. Just keep it one short of 1,000,000. And you know what? I might as well, because I got the money for it, and I've already like spent like the past playthrough I did of this, getting the level 3 blueprints unlocked for my preferred units, that I might as well buy the level 3 versions for the VF0 series. just to hold on to, because I do think like once I'm done with this demonstration, since it has been long enough, I will do another playthrough of this. I'll go back through the grind, unlock more money to and parts to use in order to construct more powerful Valkyries and whatnot. So you see like that green circle on the mini map, because like this is one of those search missions. We gotta find the item in question and then bring it back to the quest giver. Although I say quest giver, but in reality it's more like you just need to bring it back to any hunter's guild, which there are multiple locations for it in this environment, so you could just do that and be fine.
If you look at the sun, does the exposure adjust at all?
Huh.
A little, okay.
It's very subtle, yes. Yeah, there's a very subtle kind of
early HDR. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got, so that's like kind of what the what usually consists of like a search mission. There's other ones where I'd say like, I think the most annoying missions to kind of have to deal with are the ones where it's either kill X amount of enemies, which, I mean, like, it's easy to figure out what enemies they want you to kill if you're good at reading the katakana and recognize what they are, but finding where they are in the world can be a pain. And then there's other ones where it's like, collect X amount of resources that are like common item drops. But it falls into the same problem of, I don't know where those fucking common drops are, so I'm just like combing over every square inch of this place just to get what I'm looking for. But the rest are usually simple, because it is like those scavenger kind of find key item quests are easy because they mark your map. There's ones where it's like, if it tells you to kill X amount of enemies within a dungeon, that's at least easy and manageable, because it's like, oh, I need to recognize that's the name of the dungeon. I go to that dungeon, I kill however many bandits it requires, and then I get out. And then the easiest ones to do, just as far as like finding where they are like bounty missions, where you go to a spot and find like a specific target that has a bounty on it, and you gotta shoot them down.
How does the story progress? Like when you play through originally, are you always playing the main character, or?
Yes. Yeah, like you're always Leon when you start when you play through the game for the first time, and like you have at least some amount of freedom as far as who you can assign as like your wingmen. There are some exceptions based on like the part in the story where it's like they want you to have a specific character and their Valkyrie present because they're important to the particular story mission. Which, by the way, it's like you can see with like that yellow arrow that kind of moves around in the radius on the center of my screen with like the number. That's basically how that's the game always reminding you that is the direction you need to go in if you want to progress the story. So if you at least know that that's the case, and you're kind of at a spot where I just want to knock out a bunch of Hunter Guild quests to get resources, then you can just kind of know where to ignore that and not progress the story too far. Because obviously, the farther in you get, the more quests unlocked, and and stuff in the overworld will change over time that I think, as far as trying to find certain things, can be made easier or harder. So this is one of the dungeons. Like, it'll sometimes be, they kind of go between like different, there's like 3 types of aesthetics. There's ones where it's just like these sort of natural cave formations. The second type is protoculture ruins, which are very fancy, mysterious looking. And then there are just like nuns, kind of military bases and things like that. So they're a lot more sci-fi and industrial. Oh yeah, we still got melee. Don't fuck with Clan. That's all I gotta say. That said, though, this does make me miss being able to just have like a Gerwalk mode. Because, oh man. Okay. Like it can be slow going having to go through the dungeon like this. At least with Gerwalk, it's like a more reliable flying method. So, oh yeah, impact cannon. Okay. There we go. Yeah, these guys are just chumps, which is unfair because this is New Game Plus, but I've tried my hand occasionally at like playing this game like on hard or ultimate difficulty, and it's the sort of thing where I do feel dissuaded from doing it, not just because of how much more bloated like enemy stats are and things like that, but also because of the issue of frame rate, and that the really big battles in this game make the game just slow to a crawl that it feels super sluggish to get through. Yeah, this is why I don't play as the Zentradi units often.
Just not built for the environment.
They're just not built for like the kind of maneuverability that a Valkyrie is afforded, you know? And the other weird thing as well that is just like with all like the sort of balance changes this game did to accommodate the sort of longer form RPG progression that they wanted with this game, that like everything is noticeably slower, the utility and like kind of like range of practical use that that like your Valkyrie's 3 forms have are like significantly more limited. That it's like Arting technically did make like more other Macross games for the PS3 besides this one before, but those were the hybrid packs, which is like if you remember like that concept back during the PS3 days, like that was something that like Bandai was doing where the releases of like the Frontier movies on Blu-ray, as well as the 30th anniversary version release of Do You Remember Love, or maybe not specifically 30th anniversary since it was a couple years after the TV anime, but regardless, it was the Blu-ray release for that. And when you put it in a PS3, you could also access like a small game that played like the PSP games. The performance wasn't as good as it was on PSP because, again, PS3 development and whatnot, but it was similarly like fast and comparable to the PSP games. So I just don't. I'm still puzzled as to how they landed on the decisions that they did as far as balancing the gameplay this way. But for what it's worth, even with these flaws that I can point out about how it's different from the PSP Macross games, you know, it's still Macross.
Oh yeah.
And I did get a hold of this at a time where like I still had the energy for like those really long game playing binges, stuff that like I kind of wish I could get back to, but like otherwise I get burnt out so easily. That like I remember nights of just like playing this into the early AM, not really understanding what's going on with the plot, kind of being notably frustrated with like with the balance changes as we have noted, but there's still that hook of I get to play through a game that has like a generally understandable reason to make me go from the VF0 as the starting point all the way up to like the newest top of the line prototype Valkyrie models. Like progression of any kind is important for a single player game. You need to feel like things are always going to advance in some way, whether it's like RPG systems that bring character growth, or just increasing challenges that incentivize the player's skill to increase, all sorts of things. And I think the way they do this of just tying in the history of the development of technology in Macross to an RPG game is actually genius. Because, like, I could imagine you could attempt something similar like that with a Gundam RPG, but I feel like because of all the alternate continuities that series ultimately has, it's like the only timeline that would be suitable for that would be Universal Century, and even then, like what with my limited knowledge of Gundam as a whole from not watching every single piece of material that exists for it, I have no idea if they could pull together as much or at least put together a convincing enough framework that you could go from like starting out just as a gym and then going all the way to like the unicorn or something like that. Like that's something where yeah, it's the sort of thing where like yeah, you could definitely like make that work if you're going with a generic mission-based structure where the idea is play through all the highlights from each of these series. But yeah, it's the sort of thing where like this is a really cool form of progression for this game, but it's the sort of thing where you realize it could only work because of the context that this game is made for, which is you are stuck on a planet in which fold faults are causing like people from all across time and space to be pulled together in events where chances are they're probably not even real, and like when they get sent away, it's probably not even the real versions of them. They're just like apparitions based on like the universe's memory or some bullshit. At least that's how I interpret it. It's the classic, it's canon only for the context in which it occurs, but otherwise it is completely ignored because presumably it doesn't happen. Jonathan Frakes just saying, no way, not this time.
Didn't happen.
We made this one up. It's a total fabrication. Anyway, here's how you develop new Valkyries. All the scrap parts that you collect from basically finding treasure chests or destroying enemy aircraft, you basically take these and you pump in like however many of these you want so that it gets to the required number for each category. So like for the VF0D, to get it to its level 3 version, I need to make sure that those point values for the 3 categories are 22 points. You can overshoot it sometimes, like here, but like I choose to just keep it like to like the exact number because these parts are limited. You could grind them out, but again, it's grinding. It's something that you ideally would prefer to not spend as much time doing if you can. The only thing I want to grind, if anything, is stuff that involves me actually engaging in the combat. That's it. Just for the sake of getting tuning points to upgrade my stats. And even then, the guild quests are the best way to get those tune points anyway. Oh wait, no, I forgot actually. That was only to get it to rank 2, technically. There are these bonus parts though, which is like I forget exactly what the bonus itself correlates to, but it's generally a good thing to try and include those if you can to like during your development process. Like the correlation you could tell is, if it's a part that shares like the same name as the craft you're trying to develop. Yeah, we're just gonna keep working on getting this up to level 3 because we got the parts for it. There we go. Get to work, Aisha.
But I mean, there's enough blue, green, and red in each one.
Yeah, which I'm definitely blanking as far as like what those categories.
Oh, frame, something I can't read, and then engine.
And engine, yeah. Yeah, it's like the middle one is like a kanji that has to refer to like something else important. Maybe for weapons or something like that? It could be.
That makes sense.
Sure. Yeah, but we got a level 3 01D. You can at least see now. You probably remember what the what like the stat bars looked like when it's kind of at like these sort of rank 1 kind of frames right here. It's like you can clearly see the how small those upgrade bars are. And some of these, like, you can see they're a little bit bigger because they're like kind of later down in the production line. You know, the 0S versus the A or D. But here's when it's at level 3. You see now the maximum amount of points. There's a lot of grinding you could do. Or if you're flush with cash, you could just bypass that by spending money to acquire tuning points. But I think when it comes to the level 3 units, it's like kind of ill-advised because of how... because it can be very easy to just dump all your money into that. And then
so hang on. So the whole process is you buy blueprints, then you use parts to craft the like rank 2 or 3 version. Yes. Then you spend money to level up the stats.
You spend money to buy extra tuning points. Tuning points are always acquired when you defeat enemies and complete quests. So that's the ideal way, obviously, to go about upgrading. Is you use the rewards gained from, you know, quests. And the important thing is that because these tuning points are on a per vehicle basis, that does mean that if you're trying to focus on getting a certain get a particular Valkyrie the tuning points it needs to get upgraded to max, the only viable way to do that is to, you know, either play the whole time as that particular Valkyrie instead of the one that is already upgraded and you like most, like I do with the YF30, or I guess that you could do it as a bit of extra planning on your part before turning in the quest. You could go back to your hangar, swap out to the Valkyrie that you want to upgrade, and then go back to the guild and like turn in your quest. Yeah, it's a bit of a process. There's like a lot of menus that you're naturally just going to be going back and forth between, but that's just how it is. So let's oh yeah, let's do I want to just skip the VF11 and go straight to the YF19, because like this is obviously where like I always feel that these are when the Valkyrie design started to get really cool.
Yeah.
In fact, better yet, just for that, let's get so there is and we also have like the fast pack installed for like a extra benefit. But there's Isamu, and let's get an appropriate support unit. Yes, there's nothing wrong with that. And let's get, you know, since we're rocking the YF19, we'll get its sister series, the YF21. Acquiring tuning points by playing and completing missions and quests sounds similar to 4 Answer. I mean, oh god, you had to fucking remind me about FRS tuning in 4th gen. That broken ass fucking system. Also, hi, Null Vortex. Alright, let's yeah, there's Mune. Nothing's gonna go wrong with this pairing whatsoever. There's not going to be any infighting. It's totally fine. Yeah, we're just going to keep going, see what kind of stuff shows up along the way. Oh, I think we're going to get to a point where you'll finally see what I'm talking about, where the frame rate can have a really hard time keeping up. You see that dark red ship up out in the distance.
Yeah.
Like these are one of like those really tough kind of enemies that requires a whole lot of firepower to take down. But you might be noticing some choppiness happening.
Oh yeah. Too many explosions.
Fortunately, it's a good thing I brought way more powerful units this time because that ship just went down super fast. If I was still using the VF0 or VF1s, this would have been quite a handful. Yeah, I'll take down this ship, and then I'm gonna try and make a beeline as best I can to finish up the rest of the chapter, because of it introducing like a very important character that factors into, you know, the fact that this is Macross, and you can't really have a Macross anything without a love triangle.
Oh yeah.
But also look at this. Now that I'm using a better Valkyrie that has already been upgraded quite a fair bit. Just look how much faster I can go. Like at least as aggravating as it can be if you're just playing the game starting out and you're stuck with these shitty Valkyries that are super slow. When you do get late into the game and you are able to upgrade the later Valkyries that you like, it does feel great. Like anything, like any misgivings I had from when I first played this game, for the most part, did go out the window once I had gotten deep enough and saw what it was trying to go for. I do think it wasn't. I still don't think it was worth giving up on some of the extra utility that the PSP games offered, like being able to completely stall your vehicle. But oh well.
This looks there's fun in fighter mode.
Yeah, there's still way worse ways this game could have turned out. To the point where I do genuinely believe it's like we do not get enough mecha games out there that stray from the traditional like structure of discrete missions that you access from a menu. Very few actually do anything that is in this particular style, or like how any other games have done it. Like remember when I played did like a playthrough on stream for Steambot Chronicles, where that's like a whole like adventure RPG type of game where piloting a bumpy truss like those steampunk mecha is a pivotal part of it, and that was genuinely cool. That is a fantastic game that I really wish I had known about like before this year. It's just something where like I knew that it was like still like one of those games where, oh, this is a PS2 exclusive, like many things. It looks like a weird Japanese game, so that's probably worth spending an evening on, but I did not realize until I booted it up, just how much that game was like modifying itself from off of like the same engine used for disaster reports, but that controlling the mecha itself felt like mecha. You know, it felt like a vehicle that was distinctly different from just controlling a human character. So stuff like that, or even just taking the concept that this game had of taking an established gameplay system and adopting it to like a more standard like action JRPG setup. Like this deserves another attempt. It like I really it is such a shame that like this was the second to last Macross game that Artthink ever made. They did one more actually that was put on the Vita, and it's based on Macross Delta. It's called Delta Scramble, and unfortunately, I guess just because of the fact that the for as much as I'm like not a big PSP fan or anything like that, it still had a lot of pretty good games, and I could respect it as a very complimentary handheld to the DS, and that both of those share one thing in common, in that, boy, their successor handhelds did not live up to the same legacy and reputation that those two had. Vita just does not hit the same like it does as a PSP, because it feels like it doubles down even more on the same mistake Sony started out with that thing initially, where they tried to build this like, it's like a home console, but on the go. To which I reply, why wouldn't I just play the home console you already have and get better running games? 3DS kind of in a similar way, but at least it still had like the two screens to make it distinct, but it obviously, after a while, it's a sentiment that I share with a lot of people. It started to become unfun playing games on the 3DS after a point.
And they both had intermediate systems that were kind of weird. The DSi and the PSP Go.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but they were at least still understandable since they were like they were still compatible with like the same system library of like the of like what came before. It is unfortunate. I really because I cannot in any good conscience justify getting a Vita at this point. Otherwise, I totally would, and I would have bought Delta Scramble and all of its DLC by now. But I haven't, and I have no choice. I have no choice but to wait for the eventual day where the sole Vita emulator that exists on PC gets good enough that Delta Scramble is fully playable on it, and doesn't just give me a black screen.
You might be able to get a PlayStation TV, the Vita console.
You mean the thing that is way too expensive for what it is? Because people realized how good the Vita TV was?
Is it?
I mean, I get what you're going for. I did feel like that should have been the option I went for, because that would mean, hey, I could actually record footage from it.
Yeah.
But I missed my chance. It's not worth trying to buy into it now. And that's why Delta Scramble is not on Year of the Mecha. It's a shame, too, because I fucking love Delta. I love it so much. More than I ever thought that I would have. Like that's the important thing. It is so peak Macross in a lot of ways. Even down to the part where it is clearly upsetting a lot of anime boomers who somehow think that Macross wasn't about the music.
How can you watch Macross 7 and not think it's about the music?
Yeah. Like, Macross 7 is so... Like, even though I have issues with that show's pacing, and that, like, a lot of the really fun stuff doesn't kick in until the halfway point, that is still such an instrumental series for, like, evolving, like, Macross into, like, the current identity that it has. You know? Because you can't do a strict repeat of Culture Shock as the main theme. But what you can do is basically take the idea of, okay, what was at the center of that Culture Shock? Music. You know? Like, that music has a very powerful impact on people of all walks of life. Just roll with it. Just keep singing until you can move that mountain, Basara. Alright. Gotta wipe out some Zentradi bandits. As you can see, yeah, this is clearly just so much faster to deal with when you're being able to play as Valkyrie in Gerwalk mode. Not having to trudge through all this water. This mecha-sized knee-high water, I'm going to call it.
This feels like a Dark Souls environment to me. Like the dark, wet, sort of...
It's a very PS3 look.
Quality, yeah.
Yeah, you can definitely tell, like, with these water shaders and all that. Okay. Have a high maneuver missile. Whoop. Come on. Well, none of them really hit, but it was cool to see. And even in Gerwalk mode, you can still do melee hits when you can. Yeah, just clone protoculture idols. That's the solution. Oh, man. Like, Asio, that particular comment you made. This isn't necessarily referring to that the game is just going to be all about cloning all of, like, these, like, an entire race of idols from protoculture. But, we do find another remnant of protoculture in this game who does end up being this game's idol. So,
nice.
You're not too far off. Ow. Come on, get out. Does the Gem mode have an Ace Combat style expert controls that allow you to roll and yaw? Yes, it does. It's something that you can just easily change in like the in like the pause menu options. It's just something I generally do not tend to do. But I mean, I guess we could just show it briefly, assuming I remember where to. So it is Proto Delta. Yeah, that's true. So. Oh wait, hold on. I think I need to finish there we go. I had to finish the transformation into flight mode. Unless, wait, why is it not? Ah, damn it! Like for whatever reason, it's grayed out, and I have no fucking idea why that is. Ah, whatever. Again, it's the sort of thing where like it's a detail that they do put in here and is like neat, but like I said before, I've never been as big into it compared to it being used in the PS2 Macross games because its engine is literally based on the Arrow Dancing series. You know? Like, it already has an in-depth flight model to it that I think justifies the, like, that level of manual control of your aircraft. The 3 stress reactions. Fight, flight, and Gerwalk. God damn it. Ah. Alright. Yeah, there's the next quest. And that also means time to switch out to a new Valkyrie. Just keep moving up the chain to see how faster everything starts to get. Or maybe not as much. Oh, you know what? Actually, you know we have to do this.
Heck yeah.
And like the way this works is, you know, mostly about the same as it is in the PSP games whenever you play as like Sound Force members. It is a shame that even though like Millennium is here and that she can play as both support and pilot roles, she doesn't have her specific Sound Force Valkyrie, which I feel is a missed opportunity. Yeah, so as you'd expect, you know, Basara does not fight with missiles. Well, technically he does, but, like, the idea is that you don't really want to use those on, like, the pilotable enemy ships. Usually, like, installations for turrets and whatnot. But the idea is that you have, like, 2 songs, and then his third one are just, like, these rapid-fire micro-missiles. The only gun pod he has is the launcher pod. So here's how it goes. Make sure it actually lands. You see the musical note icons stack up.
Hey, yeah.
There you go. They lost the will to fight. And also, like, the more efficient way to do it technically this way is that as the music is playing, is that, hold on. Yeah, is that as long as it's playing and you get in close proximity, if they're not tagged with the launcher pods, you can just tag them then, and the effects of the music will immediately start taking effect. Naturally, the more musical notes there are, the faster the health drains. Remember, they're not dead. They just lost the will to fight.
After being hit with, you know, things that are totally not bullets.
Exactly. Remember, Neki Basara is a pacifist. In fact, he is such a pacifist that if he ever breaks that pacifism, he does not get upset at himself for what he did. He will get upset at you for pushing him into punching, like, whoever got in his way. Which is, I think that's a great power move. You know? Like, if you want to go the pacifism route, it's like, don't feel guilt if you end up breaking that pacifism at any point. Blame it on the other party for making you go that route. Although I say he's a pacifist. You saw that there's, like, obviously a punch combo.
That's a pacifism punch.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really the ultimate thing that kind of breaks the playing as the Fire Valkyrie, is that like, there was an actual penalty in the PSP games if you did not use music to take down your enemies. Like, if they were obviously, you know, like Valkyries or other types of craft that were piloted by people. And that was, you would lose more, like, spirit energy yourself, and it would, like, affect your performance. Like, basically a stat debuff for you if you did that. But, I mean, there's nothing really to stop you still from just doing this. But whatever, we could assume that this isn't the real Neki Basara, but it's just a previous version of him from a different point in time that just got
different
pulled out of the
timeline.
space-time continuum.
Not canonical.
Mm-hmm.
He can use a bit of missiles as a treat.
Pretty much. But at the same time, it's like, fuck it, if you're playing as Neki Basara, why aren't you just blaring Firebomber music all the goddamn time? You're doing a disservice to the name. Fire! Bomba! Then, of course, I also always like the Fire Valkyrie's design, since it is, you know, it's just a recolored VF-19 with the addition of a guitar controller for the cockpit, because that makes sense.
Of course.
Oh, Hasio actually got like a great answer to that. Those aren't micro missiles. Those are just signature pens. He's just writing autographs all over you until you eventually go home. Look, I got no more merchandise to sign, so here, I'll sign your Valkyrie. Come to our next concert. Oh, look at that. We got new enemies.
Those are just bugs.
Yeah. I wonder if music works on them. Yes, it does.
Nice.
Go home, little bugs.
If you told me those were Vajra, I would believe it.
So they're not Vajra? Although there are Vajra that appear as enemies in this game. But, yeah. But like, with these cocoons, for instance, this would actually be the reason why you would need to use those missiles, because they don't have a soul. Like, they just produce things that have souls. So that's why you gotta do that. That's why you need to have missiles and melee combos.
Eggs are not vulnerable to music.
They aren't. No. Or at least very, very slowly. Like, you can't stack the musical notes to increase the effect.
Those damage numbers are...
They're very small.
Going past. Yeah, very small, but ticking every frame.
Okay. Basara feels no guilt over this. But yeah, these particular creatures, they're known as Diet. Is like Dias is the name of them. Like, they look like a kind of off-brand version of like the Vajra. And kind of fill a lot of the same roles, I feel like, where it's clear that even though they cannot communicate with people the same way that like we do, but you know, they clearly have like a history to them and culture, and they are tied with like the mysteries of this planet itself. Yeah, like they're guardians of these ruins that are the remnants of protoculture, because protoculture is everywhere. It's just chill being able to do this while getting to listen to Firebomber. My only wish is like, the only wish I have is that because this game does have like limited custom soundtrack support, since that was a thing that you could do with a lot of PS3 games at the time. That I wish for when you were playing as Neki Basara, that you could swap out the music that you use for like your music attacks to just whatever you had in your playlist.
That'd be very funny.
Yeah.
Blasting some Linkin Park at the enemies until they lose the will to fight.
They lose the will to fight because, oh god, I can't take listening to this anymore. Oh, damn. I think oh! It hung there for a second because I accidentally, like, triggered, like, my special attack, pressing both triangle and circle at the same time as the Dais Guardian just blew up. I forget. I think this is coming up on the... Yeah, I think this is coming up to the moment where, like, it's introducing the character that I definitely wanted to show, because this completes the triangle and kind of gets back to the cloning to the protoculture idol thing that Hasio was joking about minutes ago.
I believe protoculture was just humanoid all along.
Yeah. But yeah, and also, as you could see with that particular cutscene, it did not have the production values that were present during the prologue. It was just still images, really. So we made it back out of there, and brought along a new girl. Protoculture's just the whole Forerunner concept. Yeah. But like probably one of the better examples, because I feel like this invariably happens anytime a sci-fi series has to make like some sort of like precursor race that is responsible for kind of sowing the seeds of evolution or whatever across the universe, is that they usually have like some dirt on them that reveals that, like, oh, these ancient race of aliens we revere as gods are massive pieces of shit. Like they just like the whole reason things are like this is because they made like a huge fuck up somewhere. And even then, I feel like the protoculture still kind of fall into that because of what they had to do in order to combat the proto-devlin. You know, Zentradi were like manufactured by them specifically for war. They made like a series of like artificial beings called Evils, which ended up unwittingly channeling the energy of the proto-devlin into them. And then, like, obviously, like, that just caused a whole fucking mess. That they disappeared. The Zentradi continued to go around fighting whoever they could. They're more or less just giant versions of Warhammer 40k orcs, except they aren't sports hooligans. They're both green as well, depending on the interpretation. But this character here is Mina Forte. Yeah, that is very clearly like a music-inspired name. How could you tell? I do like her design, though.
I'm wondering how come she can talk to the other characters.
Yeah, like, but like she doesn't really have any memories of other memories of like who she is. She's like, but I do like her design just because I think it's just something with like the hair and kind of how the strands are drawn. It's like, this is like the one modern Macross character design where I can see it most translating easily to like the 80s style of like anime characters from Macross.
I see what you mean.
Yeah. Green-haired alien girl looks like human. Yeah, that's typically how these things go. Again, protoculture. They basically made all of us like them. With some species being so good in some areas that they had to give them a very shitty like debuff to compensate. Like, okay, Wintermarians, you guys are really good at channeling like fold energy through yourselves. Your runes like give you all kinds of increased power and agility. But that is too good. That's an unfair advantage. So you know what? Fuck you. You only get to live 30 like Earth human years. Have fun. Yeah, it is unfortunate the fate of like what Windermerians have to deal with in Delta. But also, I think the other pressing issue they have to deal with, obviously, and kind of goes for other species, is just how shitty like the new UN spacey really is. Like you know clearly why they are the way they are, and how even in these modern Macross series, like we like when it comes to like the pilots that are like engaging in these fights, the ones we always focus on are not directly part of the actual human military. They're just part of mercenary companies, because that's more preferable to being part of like a fucking military state.
The Empire.
Yeah. The not so subtle dig at the military-industrial complex, and may or may not represent America.
I love a fighter jet with a AMAX sensor thing on it.
Oh, the big radome? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very cool. Like, radome dishes in general, like, it's, you know, there are multiple places that you could affix them to Mecha and have it fit well with the aesthetic. So let's go to like another alternate type of unit. Let's give the conic monster some time to shine. As you might imagine with this one, yes, it's big and heavy and slow, but you could expect it to be super powerful.
Heck yeah.
Look how far back the camera actually has to pull in order to show it. We're seeing, like, behind, like, the roof of the hangar that this is coming out of. It barely fits inside the ship.
It looked like the runway was only, like, one length of the thing itself.
Yeah, like, maybe, like, a 1.5 times the length of the conic monster. It's so silly. So here we go to Frithrai City, assuming I pronounced that correctly, because like the names in this can be a bit funky. But here we are actually at the one of the SDF-1 Macross units that originally brought the colony fleet to this planet. One thing that you might notice that is immediately different with the conic monster, even though it has the same transformation modes as a Valkyrie, it cannot hover in Gerwalk mode. It is that heavy. But yeah, look at this fucking thing. It's such a cool design that there deserves to be more things like it.
Yeah. Very beefy. It's just nice placement of and the scale of the weapons gives it a really interesting shape in all the modes.
Yeah, like it's one thing where like I could definitely see how if someone is really into Mecha series where there's like a clear variety of units that have like different designs and applications to them, I can see how Macross might seem a bit underwhelming since the majority of the technological focus is on the Valkyries. Like it's all fighter jets essentially. So after kind of recovering Mina, trying to like show her around like the world as it were, she and Aisha went shopping, and she just heard one of Cheryl's songs on the radio, instantly became a fan, and was like, I want to be an idol now. Because that's how it works.
Cheryl songs are my favorite overall, I think. There's so many good ones.
I think like hers from the movies in particular hit really hard in a way that I like. Universal Bunny is like I think that's one of my go-to songs. Like I mean like there's plenty of others that I could point to that I think are a good example of how even though a lot of like the music is, you know, it's J-pop, but the way it like the style and context in which like the J-pop is used in Macross has such a different impact compared to like I don't know, typical shit that you would hear from like an Idol Master or Love Live or any other like current idols in the real Japanese music industry. Like the songs always feel like that like, and they can have like a variety that includes even some of the more cutesy saccharine type of J-pop songs as well. But a lot of the ones that like stick and like are defining for many of these characters are the ones that are kind of by design have to be made so that when you play them in the midst of like an epic battle that
exactly,
it fits.
Yeah. You'll have an awesome holographic concert during
That too.
a desperate battle.
Yeah. Yeah, and even when it's stuff that's as simple as a love song, like at the end of Do You Remember Love? It's not high octane, but it's great to listen in its own right, and it really works in the context of This Is Humanity's like final hour essentially. Like we either win or we're just dead. Yeah, it's just like Universal Bunny. Sayonara no Tsubasa is still, I think that's still like that's also another favorite song. That's both Cheryl and Ronka, obviously, but it goes on for so long because it obviously has to fit the length of the battle, but it's so worth the listen every time. Delta's also got like similar energy with that as well. I mean, like you remember from the first episode ending on Ikenai Borderline.
I didn't even realize that it was a Macross song. I heard it on, anime radios, and I thought, oh, that's a really good song.
Yeah.
I didn't look it up, and then it came on at the end of that first episode, and I was, yeah.
Yeah, amidst all the fighting, all of Valkyrie singing, Hayate getting into the Siegfried and making it breakdance.
I do love that. Yeah.
Like, if there's one thing that, I mean, it's both a plus and a minus in the case of Delta when you continue to watch it, is that Hayate and Freya are just like my favorite anime couple ever. That like they have just like a great sense of like chemistry with each other, even down to like just the banter and teasing each other that just feels so natural and something that would happen in a relationship like that. But at the same time, Macross has love triangles as like a central part of its identity. And unfortunately, because of how good that couple is, you immediately see who's on the other end of the triangle, and you're like, yeah, you have no chance. I'm sorry.
She's not even drawn as detailed. Like, right from the beginning, she's not drawn as detailed. Like, her character design is plainer. I like her a lot, but...
Yeah, Mirage is, like, an interesting character. Like the idea of you take one of the grandchildren of like, the ace pilots of the human and Zentradi races from the Zentradi War, and it's like... And not to mention is also the niece of the bass player from one of the greatest rock bands in the galaxy. It's like... How do you measure up to that kind of legacy? And it turns out she has a fucking hard time doing that. That, like, she's just kind of, she may have, like, the talent to be a cut above, like, most average people, but just being above average itself, to her, like, she has trouble, like, kind of dealing with that. But she does get, like, like, if you ever get around to it after the TV series and watch the movies, like, the second Delta movie does, give her a great moment that kind of shows that she's finally hits her stride. She finds what she's really good at in as a Valkyrie pilot. But otherwise, she's just the third wheel. Them's the brakes. But again, it's like I would because I would be more disappointed in it if it wasn't for the fact that Freya is just so precious. And Hayate is like a really fun like male protagonist lead that gives off like a nice different air compared to how Alto feels in Frontier, where he's clearly dealing with a lot of his own shit that just feels so overbearing on everything else about him. Hayate's like most of his problems just stem from the fact that like his father was a military pilot who he barely got to see, and he's just drifting from job to job until he can find anything that is like worth sticking around and like applying all of his talents to.
I find it very funny. He's like, fine, I'll join your military, but I'm not listening to any orders. I'm just doing what I want.
Yeah, and and naturally that's not gonna last long. Like him and Mirage, like their approaches to flying is like so oil and water that it takes their squad leader to pull them aside and like, listen, these are your problems. If you want to keep sticking around, you got to put this aside and also be able to beat me in like a mock fight, you know? And like Messer is no goddamn joke in that series. Yeah, the cast is so good. Speaking of the cast of Delta and just how absolutely amazing they are, like, even going back to things where I didn't expect to like it as much as I did because I wasn't sure of some elements that they were advertising it having, like the fact that it's an entire idol group instead of just a singular one. But even all the members of Valkyrie are so good.
I haven't seen, like, I've seen not much of several of them so far because only a few episodes. Well, the series is quite short, right? I'm halfway through, I guess.
Well, Delta
not much
goes
time
for like
to...
20-some episodes, the same as like any other. That kind of
Really?
thing.
Maybe I got the wrong torrent. I thought it was only like an episode or something.
Oh no!
Okay. I'm missing some then, clearly.
Yeah, because you need to be able to appreciate how Machina and Reina in Valkyrie are like the greatest, most drama-free lesbian couple in the entire series, or just not even just specifically lesbian couple, any couple. Like, there's no drama. They got over whatever differences they originally had, and it's like, we are just so happy and gay for each other that we need to show everyone how happy and gay we are, while everyone else is having to deal with, you know, their own like struggles that they're trying to overcome in their relationships. Like, you compare that to how Max and Milia's relationship has gone over the course of their marriage.
I also really like the character who's got colon 3 sort of that face jellyfish thing on her head at all times.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, you're talking about like Mikumo with like with how just her hair looks like jellyfish tendrils.
Well, she's got an actual like jellyfish thing with a face that moves with her, so it looks like an alien parasite controlling her.
Oh, you're talking about other side characters that like
one of the staff characters, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fun series. I mean, even the glimpses you get of the characters on the side of Windermere is also really refreshing, because it just shows how, you know, closer in humanity and culture they are compared to humanity. It's just, you know, they obviously got their own other problems, mainly all having to do with the fact that the new UN Spacey completely fucked them over, because of course they do. So many problems in the Macross series could just be avoided if the military in that world was not so focused on the idea of, if there is an enemy, we must kill it. All right, and here we are, getting closer and closer to the like kind of like up to date on the like the Valkyrie units, already up to the VF-25. At this point, it is like, yeah, just this is so worlds apart from like what we started demonstrating at the beginning. You can imagine just how like very you know, like impactful this would be if you were playing this on a completely new game, going through all the chapters that the game has to offer, and just feeling the satisfaction of, fuck yes, I get to go up like one style of unit and just get all this increased maneuverability, weapon power, all sorts of stuff. Like, just the only thing I can think of as far as, because I've thought about it somewhat with the and, you know, actually, I think because we are getting close to like the end of like our usual amount of time we spent on this, I'm gonna go back and switch technically to the YF-30 to show off some of the details it has, because I think with all the stuff that we've been gushing about in regards to Delta, I think it's important to bring up what the YF-30 has to offer, and kind of how that gives way to the model after it that is in Delta, the VF-31 line. So Yeah, there's the YF-30 Kronos. And one thing you will notice is that as I'm flying around, there is a certain mechanism that will like either stow away or deploy depending on like which sub-weapons I switch to. Right now, nothing is really like being deployed on this right now. It just looks normal, but that's because we have the regular multi-missiles. If we switch to like the rapid ones.
Oh!
Yeah. So, like, with what you've seen of Delta, have you noticed, like, whenever, like, the Siegfrieds, the VF-31s, like, are transformed and, like, they have, like, those sort of, like back-mounted laser turrets that kind of deploy on, like, in something like either Gerwalk or Batroid mode? So, like, that mechanism itself is, like, kind of like the basis for what would be implemented fully into the VF-31s. So, like that's the part that it also makes this game have a lot of cool points for me, even with the flaws that it has, is because this is a prototype unit that was designed by Shoji Kawamori himself. It is basically as official as can be, and it does factor into the continuing development and technology of the Macross series. Like, this is one of the benefits you get from a series where you don't need to jump around the timeline to all kinds of different points to explore new ideas of what really happened during a different point in time. Like, you can just keep moving forward, and all the new ideas you have will, like, naturally fit. Because, you know, as technology and, like, visual concepts and animation styles and whatnot continue to advance in animation and whatnot in that industry, it looks better when you apply it to new future settings in the same series, even if it's one that started all the way back in the 80s. And yeah, as you would imagine, when you get to play as the YF-30, it feels pretty fucking great. It's basically the peak. You do get a sneak preview of piloting it, though, halfway through the game, where in one of the other hub worlds, because there are 3. This is just the first one. The second one's a desert, and the third one is like a glacier area. But in the desert area, there's like a main quest that takes you to one of the underground cities where you meet Isamu. Which, obviously, by that point, is the sort of thing where even though, like, this still gets into the sort of confusing nature of the space-time shenanigans with this game. Because even by the time of Frontier, Isamu is still alive. He is with SMS. You know, if you remember the cameo that he had for like 5 seconds in Wings of Goodbye, where he just shows in, shows up for the final battle in a YF-29 with like his paint job. But like you basically find him, have some conversation, and you decide to have a race with him, you know, in his YF, I think it's with the YF-29, and Aisha's putting together a new prototype unit for the YF-30. The first race does not go well because there's a malfunction that causes you to lose it. And then you have like a rematch later after she fixes it, but it's still not complete for like full battle purposes past the flight mode. And so naturally, once you get to the final chapter and the finale of the game, that's when the YF-30 is completed and you finally get to use it to its full potential. Yeah, it still feels great. I wish the ceiling was higher, but oh well. Find the franchise's lore about the Valkyries themselves are so high-tech in performance that I don't think wings are even needed. Maybe. I mean, they do seem to go back and forth as far as, like, what style of wings they think the next Valkyrie should have, whether it's, like, the sort of inverted V shape or if it's just this obvious triangle shape, or if they want something that's more akin to an to like a classic F-14. Yeah, I guess that part is a little bit odd, but I mean, I guess it's just to increase the familiarity of the fact that, you know, in atmosphere these are fighter jets. They still need wings cool. Anyway. Plus, I have to imagine part of it is that when it comes to the Gerwalk mode specifically, if you're going based off of how these were handled in in the PSP games, where Gerwalk mode always had you going forward regardless, is that the assumption I always had from that was just that, you know, like, in Gerwalk mode, you don't need to have as much, like, thruster output as you normally would in fighter mode or Batroid. It just, the idea is that you can use just natural aerodynamics with the wings to help it glide. Also, almost all the modern Valkyries have canards. That's true. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I just always like the detail how it was like, Valkyries always had a very specific design in mech and transformation mechanism that basically got thrown out once Plus came along and introduced the more slick and ergonomic kind of mechanisms of the YF-19 and 21, and that, you know, it's basically both in terms of, you know, the anime production, but also the in-universe, that's the new model they went with forward. Like, that was a more practical means of production to design Valkyries this way, where it's not just a simple, well, I guess we'll awkwardly forward like the front nose and like the back parts of the of the Valkyrie in two so that it becomes a torso. Instead, we got to do this other fancy shit where the back of it folds on top of the nose, and then like other parts of it fold beneath both of those, which is what connects to the legs / fuselage. All this other shit that just makes the transformations extra fancy. And on top of that, all the more reason why Millennium, like, when you watch Delta, especially if you make sure to kind of rewatch it like from scratch, make sure you're not missing any episodes, is to be sure that you catch the episode where the Knights of Windermere get their proper introduction with their particular transforming mecha, and that compared to all the other times the Valkyrie transforms, where it's like in a split second, they basically dedicated like a whole money shot to those particular Valkyries that the Knights have, and showing how different their transformation mechanism is to let you know, oh yeah, these aren't just Valkyries. They're similar, but they're on a different level now. It's really cool. Anything else that would be like important to kind of highlight about this? I guess not much else. I mean, like the
what other environments do you have?
Like 3 because this is the first one, like this archipelago area. The second is the desert, which you only get to a third of the way through the game. And then the third environment, which is Glacier, you get to like 2/3 of the way through. The dungeon environments are basically the same all the way through. You know, it's caves, protoculture ruins, and military base. And you'll just pretty much engaging with this same kind of core gameplay loop, which may or may not work for you if you feel like for an RPG you need to have a solid understanding of what's happening in the story. I only know the basic summary. This game ultimately ends with the main villain being like someone from the new UN Spacey in a rogue organization who's trying to harness the powers of this planet, like to essentially rewrite history so that the majority of humanity did not get wiped out by the Zentradi. And as such, he is mega racist towards all Zentradi, because his idea is, we are going to just kill all the Zentradi before they have a chance to kill us. And it's like, God damn it, nuns, you people are the worst. I sincerely hope that when that next Macross series that's being produced by Sunrise comes out, that there is adequate amount, like just all the right amount of dunking on that fucking military, and just showing how every time they try and like enact a decision in the war, it always makes it worse. I'm very hopeful that like whatever like new idol or music act in general that they have for that series will be something unique. Yeah.
Maybe the guy again as part of the group. Maybe...
Oh God, I hope so. I've actually been thinking about that, where it's like, can we I don't know how much Kawamori cares about whether he wants to like get a new up and coming talent or get an established one, but I don't know. Maybe we could work out a deal with King Records and get Aoi Shota to be the main idol in a Macross series, assuming he's not too busy collaborating on like some Pop Team Epic shit. I don't know. To be fair, though, his bits on Pop Team Epic were pretty great. Him just being his
Yeah.
own Super Sentai hero in like his second season. That was so good. Yeah. Macross will still continue no matter what, even if it's a once in a decade thing. It at least guarantees that it maintains an advantage over a lot of other legacy series, namely Gundam, where it will at least always feel fresh. And that I think like the gulf in quality between entries will at least feel consistent with each other. But that's it for 30. Thank you so much for being on for this one, Millennium.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Good to chat about some Macross.
Definitely. I'm definitely looking at this and being like, I'm definitely going to go back all in on this and do another playthrough, upgrade some more units. As far as upcoming stream events, I just remember reading about Kawamori tired of designing mechs, but not sure. I think it's just I would not be surprised if the tired part is just more like a general like age thing and probably thinking somewhere around like retiring or something. But I think even then it's like he's still really talented at that stuff. So like there's no reason for him to stop until he feels like he wants to actually retire. And like I think it would not be too far-fetched that, you know, with all the people that have worked on the Macross series up to this point, that someone might come along and be able to do mecha designs that capture the same aesthetic sense and like specificity that Kawamori's designs always had. But yeah, upcoming streams, we will finally get to the end of Battle Operation Code Fairy on Saturday. That playthrough will finally resume. And but as for the next main year of the mecha, will be the following Saturday, where Kaboom will be back and we will be covering Battle Robot Damashi, the final PSP Art Dink mecha game, which is if you thought it was like interesting or weird, or like kind of like the sort of circumstances that bring about like developers like Art Dink making something based on existing licenses. Wait until you see how like Battle Robot Damashi is basically them making their own crossover mecha game under the context that they were basically tasked to make a game based on a toy line. But it's not like a toy line of original mecha. It's all existing ones. It'll be explained more then, because I obviously gotta prepare my notes for that. But everyone else, have a good rest of your day. I'll see you then.
Bye.
Game over.